What are the issues of liability of one spouse for another spouse's debt in Arizona? Attorney Ronald Thomas explains that Arizona is a community property state, so it can be confusing for both creditors and debtors whether a debtor's spouse's assets can be taken to satisfy the debts of the debtor's spouse. For example, if your wife has a lot of student loan debt and she marries you, can you be attacked legally by her creditors if she fails to pay the student loans? In Arizona, the separate property of a spouse is not liable for the separate debts of the other spouse unless there is an agreement by the non-debtor spouse to the contrary. So, in the above example, the husband's assets would not be subject to seizure by the wife's premarital student loan creditors. However, the spouse's community property is liable for the premarital separate debts of a spouse, but only to the extent of the value of that spouse's contribution to the community property, which would have been that debtor spouse's separate property if that debtor spouse were single. So creditors could have the ability to make your life difficult, but there are limits placed on what and how much they can take. Community property is liable for a spouse's debt incurred outside Arizona during the marriage, which would have been community debts if incurred in Arizona. In other words, it does not matter whether the location where the debt was incurred is a community property state or a separate property state. As long as you and your wife are married at the time the debt was incurred, the debt will be presumed to be community property. Call Thomas Law Office today at 602-788-1395 to discuss your case in detail. And you can also visit www.thomaslawoffice.net